They have made you believe that self-love is selfishness, and that is why you remain trapped in what hurts you. Since childhood, we are taught to give, to yield, to sacrifice for others. We are told that true love is unconditional, that we must be patient, that it is normal to endure certain things for the sake of a relationship. But no one teaches us to prioritize ourselves. No one tells us that setting boundaries is also love. That is why many people end up trapped in relationships and situations that destroy them, believing it is their duty to stay, because at some point we learned that loving ourselves was selfish. If today you are still allowing emotional mistreatment, if you keep justifying someone's indifference, if you remain surrounded by people who make you feel small, it is not because you do not realize the harm they are doing to you. It is because you have not yet given yourself permission to choose yourself. The lack of self-love is not immediately noticeable. You do not wake up one day deciding to endure the intolerable. It all starts with small concessions, a hurtful comment you choose to ignore, a lack of respect you justify, a boundary you do not dare to set. And little by little, you get used to it until you reach a point where you have been hurt so much that you no longer even question whether you deserve more. The problem is that when you lack self-love, you depend on others' validation to feel valuable. And that makes you vulnerable. Vulnerable to relationships that drain your energy, to jobs that exploit you, to friendships that are only there when it's convenient for them. Vulnerable to staying in places where you are not happy because you believe you have no other option. But here is the truth no one tells you. Self-love is not something nice you can give yourself when everything is fine. It is the only real weapon you have to protect yourself from what destroys you. If you do not love yourself, you will stay in relationships that wear you down. If you do not love yourself, you will accept less than you deserve. If you do not love yourself, you will keep repeating the same patterns of pain over and over again, without understanding why you always end up in the same place. But this does not have to continue. Today, we are going to dismantle the idea that loving yourself is selfish. We are going to discover how the lack of self-love keeps us trapped in toxicity, and most importantly, how to strengthen it so that it becomes your greatest protection. Because when you truly learn to love yourself, you no longer have to fight against the toxic. You simply stop allowing it. Since childhood, we are taught that love is something to be earned, that we must behave well, meet expectations, be acceptable to others. We are conditioned to believe that if we do not do enough, we do not deserve to be loved. That belief is dangerous because it turns us into emotional beggars. It makes us think that we must prove our worth in every relationship, that we must give more, endure more, sacrifice more, all in the hope of receiving in return a love that should not require conditions. But when you grow up with this idea, you enter a toxic dynamic without realizing it. You learn to tolerate emotional mistreatment because you believe that maybe you deserve it. Many people allow themselves to be hurt, not because they enjoy suffering, but because deep down, they think that is normal. Maybe they saw their parents in relationships where one always gave in, where love was a constant struggle, where patience was the only way to keep the family together. Or maybe they grew up feeling that if they did not please others, they would be rejected. This is how the idea develops that love is not a right, but a reward. And here is the problem. When you believe that love must be earned, you become incapable of leaving a relationship that hurts you. Think of someone who has been in a relationship where they are constantly made to feel insufficient. Maybe their partner ignores them, criticizes them, makes them doubt their own worth. At first, it hurts. But over time, instead of questioning the relationship, they start questioning themselves. Maybe I'm not giving enough. Maybe if I'm more understanding, the relationship will improve. If I try harder, surely everything will change. And so, instead of walking away, they cling. Instead of demanding love, they beg for it. And every time they receive a little affection, it feels like a reward for their sacrifice. But love should not feel like an occasional reward. Real love should not be something you have to fight for. When you lack self-love, you become vulnerable to toxic relationships, not because you cannot see the harm they are doing to you, but because you convince yourself that you deserve it, or worse, that it is the only thing you can get. But here is the truth. Love is not begged for. Love is chosen. And when you learn to choose yourself, you stop accepting what does not serve you. When you realize you deserve better, everything changes. Toxicity loses its power over you because the only way to break free from the cycle of pain is not by waiting for someone else to love you correctly, but by loving yourself enough not to accept less. We've been taught that love is sacrifice, that if you truly love someone, you must fight, endure, and be patient. That true love withstands everything, that no one is perfect, and that all relationships have problems. And that's how we end up confusing love with suffering. Many people believe that if they are suffering in a relationship, it proves their commitment, that if they stay despite everything, it's because they truly love that person. But what if it's not love keeping us there, but fear? When you confuse love with sacrifice, you begin to justify the unjustifiable. You normalize indifference, hurtful words, and emotional wounds that, though invisible, hurt just as much as physical ones. Every time someone hurts you, you look for a reason to stay instead of asking yourself if you should leave. We all have flaws. I don't want to give up so easily. If I were more patient, things would get better. And so, instead of recognizing the harm, you convince yourself it's normal. But love shouldn't feel like a constant battle. It shouldn't make you doubt your worth or turn you into someone who is always waiting for the other person to change. Emotional dependency makes us cling to something even when we know it's not good for us. It makes us believe that letting go means losing something valuable. But here's the truth. No one tells you. Real love shouldn't hurt this way. When you have self-love, the way you connect with others changes completely. You no longer love from a place of fear of loss, but from the certainty that you deserve to be loved unconditionally. You no longer accept what destroys you just because you're afraid of being alone. You no longer confuse love with endurance or commitment with sacrifice. Because when you truly love yourself, you stop justifying what you shouldn't tolerate. You stop normalizing mistreatment disguised as love. You stop settling for emotional crumbs because you understand that love is not something to be begged for. It's something to be chosen. And the moment you start choosing yourself, toxicity loses its grip on you. Because you no longer seek someone to complete you, but someone to simply walk alongside you. And if that's not the case, then you walk away. Not because you're selfish, but because you've finally realized that no love is more important than the one you give yourself. The relationships we choose are not random. They reflect the relationship we have with ourselves. If deep down you feel you are not enough, you will attract people who confirm that. If you believe you have to work hard to be loved, you will find someone who only gives you love when you earn it. If you think love is painful, you will seek relationships where suffering is always present. We don't realize it, but we attract the love we believe we deserve. When you have low self-esteem, your relationships are built on inequality. You adapt to others instead of demanding reciprocity. You settle for inconsistent affection because you feel you can't ask for more. And little by little, you let others dictate your worth. Power dynamics in a relationship don't arise out of nowhere. They form when one person takes control and the other gives it away without realizing it. When one sets the rules and the other simply follows. When the fear of losing someone is greater than the desire to be treated with respect. If you constantly find yourself in relationships where you feel ignored, undervalued, or always in a role of sacrifice, it's not a coincidence. It's not bad luck. It's a reflection of how you see yourself. But here's the good news. Just as we attract what we think we deserve, we can change what we believe we deserve. To break this pattern, you need to ask yourself an uncomfortable question. What kind of love have I been allowing in my life? To answer it, try this exercise. Think about your past and current relationships. How have those people treated you? Have they made you feel valued or insufficient? Have they respected you, or have you had to justify their actions? Now ask yourself, if someone you love were in a relationship like yours, would you tell them to stay or to leave? If your answer is that you'd tell them to leave, then the real question is, why do you keep allowing in your life what you would never want for someone else? The first step to attracting healthy love is understanding that you won't get something better until you believe you deserve it. If you keep accepting half-hearted relationships, you'll keep receiving half-hearted love. When you start seeing yourself differently, the relationships you choose change. You stop settling for whatever comes your way and start choosing with intention. You stop accepting anything just to avoid being alone. You stop begging for love because you understand that there is nothing about you that needs to be proven. The love you receive is a reflection of the love you give yourself. So if you want to attract something better, start by treating yourself better. The fear of loneliness is one of the most powerful traps that keep us stuck in toxic relationships. Not because we truly love the other person, but because the alternative, being alone, starting over, facing uncertainty, seems even more terrifying. But here's the truth. The fear of being alone doesn't protect you. It condemns you. When you fear loneliness, you accept less than you deserve. You tolerate disrespect, convincing yourself that nobody is perfect. You forgive the unforgivable just to avoid emptiness. You sacrifice your happiness for the comfort of not having to face life alone. And that's how you lose yourself. When you postpone your happiness to please others, the price is higher than you think. Every time you ignore your feelings, every time you convince yourself that this is the best I can have, every time you stay silent to avoid an argument, you pay with your peace of mind. Maybe right now, you think that enduring is an act of loyalty, that staying means you're a strong person, that you truly love the other person, that you're not abandoning what you've built together. But don't confuse love with sacrifice. Don't mistake loyalty for emotional dependence. Emotional dependence disguises itself in many forms. Sometimes it looks like unconditional love, when, in reality, it's fear. Sometimes it looks like patience, when, in reality, it's resignation. Sometimes it looks like commitment, when, in reality, it's self-abandonment. Think about how much you've changed since being in this relationship. Do you feel stronger or more worn out? Are you happier, or have you convinced yourself that happiness isn't that important. Are you still yourself? Or have you become a version of you that simply settles? Because when you give up on yourself out of fear of being alone, it's not love. It's a slow way of disappearing. True self-love isn't just about appreciating yourself when everything is going well. It's about being able to look at yourself and say, I deserve more than this, even when the idea of letting go terrifies you. And here's the key. The loneliness you fear so much isn't real. It's just a shadow created by your fears. What's truly making you feel empty isn't the thought of being alone. It's being in a place where you're not happy, because the cost of not loving yourself is high. The longer you spend ignoring your own worth, the harder it becomes to remember who you really are. Self-love isn't just a nice idea we should repeat in front of the mirror. It's action. It's the way you choose to treat yourself every single day. And one of the most powerful ways to show your self-love is by learning to set boundaries. Because when you don't have boundaries, you give others control over your well-being. You allow them to cross the line, to take up your time, to play with your emotions, to take more than they give. And every time you let something hurt you slide, you send yourself a message. My needs don't matter that much. But here's the truth. Every time you say yes to something that harms you, you're saying no to yourself. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's a way to protect your peace of mind. It's the difference between living at the mercy of what others want and taking control of your own life. The problem is that we've been taught to feel guilty when we set boundaries. We've been told that if we say no, we're being cold, that if we demand respect, we're overreacting, that if we walk away from what hurts us, we're being selfish. But real selfishness is expecting someone to destroy themselves just so others can feel comfortable. So here's a practical method to start setting boundaries without guilt. Recognize what you're no longer willing to accept. If something makes you uncomfortable, hurts you, or makes you feel small, it's a sign that you need a boundary there. Listen to your discomfort. It's your intuition telling you something isn't right. Start small. You don't have to change everything overnight. Begin by practicing saying no in everyday situations. You don't need to explain or justify yourself. Simply say, I don't want to do this. Repeat it without fear of how others react. You can't control how people respond when you start setting boundaries, but you can control how firmly you stand by them. You don't need others to approve. You just need to respect them yourself. Remember, boundaries push the wrong people away and strengthen the right relationships. If someone can't accept your boundaries, then they were never in your life for who you are, but for what they could get from you. Setting boundaries is an act of self-love. It's proving to yourself that you deserve respect, that your well-being matters, and that you don't have to keep tolerating what destroys you just to avoid making others uncomfortable. Because self-love isn't just about saying yes to everything good. It's about having the courage to say no to what doesn't serve you. Building a new identity isn't just about changing habits or improving self-esteem. It's about reprogramming yourself from within. It's about no longer being the person who tolerated toxicity and becoming someone who refuses to accept anything less than what they deserve. But this doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, a rebirth after leaving a toxic relationship, after learning to set boundaries, after realizing how much time you spent ignoring yourself. Then comes the most important moment, deciding who you want to be from now on. This is where emotional self-sufficiency comes in. Many people believe that the key to healing is finding someone better, that after a bad relationship, the ideal solution is to meet someone who truly treats you well, who genuinely loves and values you. But that's not the point. You don't need someone else to validate you. What you really need is to discover that you can be happy without depending on anyone else. When you become emotionally self-sufficient, you stop searching for in others what only you can give yourself. You no longer need anyone's approval to feel worthy. You no longer seek love to fill a void. You become whole on your own. Think about someone who has transformed their life after being in a toxic relationship. Someone who spent years sacrificing, enduring the unbearable, believing that love meant putting up with everything. But one day, something clicked. Maybe it was a conversation, a breaking point, or simply the exhaustion of giving so much without receiving the same in return. That person decided to walk away. At first, fear was paralyzing. The uncertainty made them doubt. But with each passing day, they began to remember who they were. They picked up old hobbies they had abandoned. They rebuilt their support system. They learned to enjoy their time alone. And little by little, they stopped missing what they once thought was love. That process wasn't easy. But one day, they woke up and realized something incredible. They were no longer the same person who had allowed toxicity in their life. And that's the key. It's not just about leaving a bad relationship or distancing yourself from people who hurt you. It's about becoming someone who no longer fits into those toxic dynamics. When you build a new identity based on self-love, your energy shifts. What you once tolerated now becomes intolerable. What once hurt you, you now see with clarity. What you once searched for in others, you now find within yourself. That is the true revolution of self-love. Not just walking away from what harms you, but becoming someone who would never allow it again. Self-love is not something you give yourself only when everything is going well. It's what you need the most when everything is falling apart. We were taught to think that self-love is a luxury, something we can develop only when our lives are already in harmony. But the truth is, self-love is most essential in moments of chaos, doubt, and pain. It's in the middle of a relationship that is destroying you when you need to love yourself the most. It's when you feel empty and lost that you need to hold on to yourself. It's when everyone else lets you down that you need to remind yourself that you cannot let yourself down. If anything you've heard today has made you reflect, I want you to ask yourself this question. What decision have you been postponing out of fear? Maybe it's a relationship you know you need to leave, but you stay because you're afraid of being alone. Maybe it's a boundary you haven't dared to set because you fear others will walk away. Maybe it's a change you've been wanting for a long time, but fear of the unknown has paralyzed you. I want you to think about it and share it in the comments. Your story might be the push someone else needs to make the decision that will change their life. And if this video helped you see things differently, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Without realizing it, you might help someone break free from what's holding them back. Because in the end, self-love is not just an idea. It's the only real tool you have to protect yourself from what destroys you. And when you make it your top priority, everything that doesn't serve you will eventually fade away. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe for more content that helps you grow, heal, and discover your true power. Share this video with someone who needs it and join this community of transformation. And remember the words of Carl Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You have the power to change your story. You are not a prisoner of your past, but the creator of your future. It's time to wake up and take control of your life.
Throughout life, we all reach a point where we stop and ask ourselves, is this all there is? For many, this moment arrives around the age of 40, and that is no coincidence. It is the age when the masks we have worn for years begin to fall away, when the illusion of what we once thought would bring us happiness starts to crumble, and when the call of the soul becomes impossible to ignore. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. He did not see this crisis as a problem, but as an opportunity, an opening, a doorway to something greater. He believed that true rebirth, the real beginning of life, does not occur in our youth. It happens when we dare to uncover who we truly are, when we find the courage to strip away the layers of conditioning and expectations that have shaped us into something we were never meant to be. For years, we have lived with a borrowed identity. We became who we were told we should be. We followed the path that was laid out for us without questioning if it was truly ours. We studied what we were told would bring us stability. We surrounded ourselves with people who fit the image we wanted to project. From the outside, everything seemed fine. Life appeared to be on track. And yet, at some point, an emptiness began to creep in. At first, we tried to ignore it. We distracted ourselves. We buried ourselves in work, in family responsibilities, in the endless pursuit of productivity. We convinced ourselves that if we just stayed busy enough, the feeling would go away. But it didn't. The emptiness remained. It revealed itself in subtle ways, through a lack of enthusiasm, through emotional exhaustion, through a persistent sensation that, despite having done everything right, something was missing. Jung called this phenomenon the process of individuation, the journey toward integrating the true self. In the first half of life, we are taught to build a strong ego, to construct an identity that allows us to function in society. We learn to play the roles assigned to us, the responsible student, the devoted parent, the hardworking professional. We become masters of fulfilling expectations. But then comes a turning point, a moment when life demands something more from us. If we ignore this call, the unconscious will start sending us increasingly stronger signals. Anxiety, dissatisfaction, a feeling of being trapped in a life that no longer feels like our own. For Jung, these symptoms were not problems to be eliminated, but messages to be deciphered. They were the psyche's way of telling us that change was necessary, that growth was waiting just beyond our resistance. This is the point where many people experience a crisis. They feel lost, as if they have taken a wrong turn somewhere along the way. They begin to believe that something is deeply wrong with them. But the truth is far more profound. What they are experiencing is not the end of the road. It is the beginning of something extraordinary. Rebirth is not a conclusion. It is an initiation. It is the opportunity to let go of everything that no longer serves you, to release the beliefs you have carried for years without ever questioning whether they were truly yours. It is a chance to rediscover what truly nourishes your soul, what sets your heart on fire, what makes you feel alive. But in order to get there, you must be willing to face your shadow. Jung spoke of the shadow as all those aspects of ourselves that we have repressed because they did not fit the image we wanted to maintain. The fear of rejection, the guilt we have buried, the desires we have denied, the emotions we have learned to suppress. But here's the truth. The shadow does not disappear just because we ignore it. On the contrary, it grows stronger. It manifests in the patterns we repeat, in the relationships that drain us, in the choices we make that go against our own well-being. Every time you feel that something is off in your life, every time you react in a way that even you don't fully understand, it is your shadow trying to emerge, trying to be acknowledged. But here's the real secret. The shadow is not your enemy. It is a part of you that is yearning to be seen, understood, and integrated. You cannot be reborn while still running from what makes you uncomfortable. You cannot start anew while clinging to a version of yourself that no longer represents who you are becoming. The process is not easy. It requires courage. It demands a willingness to sit with your discomfort, to question your assumptions, to dismantle the false sense of security you have built. But it is the only path to true freedom. Many people believe that the ultimate goal of life is to find happiness. They spend their days chasing fleeting moments of joy, believing that once they attain a certain milestone, a successful career, a stable relationship, financial security, or societal recognition, they will finally achieve the happiness they have been seeking. But is happiness really the ultimate purpose of life? Jung saw things differently. He believed that the true purpose of life is not mere happiness, but a deep sense of fulfillment, something far more profound and lasting. And true fulfillment is only found when you stop living according to the expectations of others and begin to align your life with your inner truth. This does not mean that you have to change everything overnight. It does not mean abandoning your responsibilities or making impulsive decisions. But it does mean that you must start listening, truly listening, to that quiet voice within you, the one you have ignored for far too long. Perhaps you have felt it, a lingering sense of discomfort, a subtle but persistent feeling that something in your life no longer fits. Maybe it's a relationship that feels more like an obligation than an authentic connection. Maybe it's a job that provides financial stability, but slowly drains your spirit. Or perhaps it's a way of life that aligns with what others expect from you, yet leaves you feeling empty inside. There are no easy answers, but there is one thing you can do. Start questioning. Begin to ask yourself, without fear, whether what you're holding on to truly belongs to you, or if you have merely carried it, because that's what you were taught to do. Reinventing yourself at 40 or at any age is not about starting over from scratch. It's about beginning to live with real intention. It's about taking ownership of your story instead of following a script you never wrote. It's about trusting your intuition, believing your own ability to guide yourself toward what truly matters. Jung believed that the most profound transformation occurs when we stop looking for answers outside of ourselves and instead turn inward. And when you do this, when you truly commit to self-exploration, something extraordinary begins to happen. You start attracting the people and experiences that genuinely align with your essence. Synchronicity, as Jung called it, becomes a natural part of your life. Opportunities appear at exactly the right moment. The puzzle pieces of your existence begin to fit together, not because you're doing everything right, but because for the first time you are living in authenticity. But this path is not for everyone. It requires courage. It demands that you let go of what no longer resonates with you. It asks you to accept that the life you have built may not be the life you truly desire. And that realization can be terrifying, but it is also the beginning of something far greater. The real question is, are you ready to discover who you truly are? When you start looking within, when you dare to challenge everything you thought you knew about yourself, something begins to shift. At first, it may feel like chaos, as if the foundation of your identity is crumbling. But this collapse is not the end. It is the necessary process of breaking down illusions so that you can rebuild yourself in a way that is more honest, more aligned, more real. Carl Jung believed that true transformation does not come from adding more layers to your identity. It comes from shedding what is not real. It comes from releasing what is not truly yours. It comes from letting go of everything you have unconsciously accumulated, everything that has distanced you from your authentic self. This process is not easy. It requires letting go of ideas that once gave you security, letting go of relationships that, though familiar, no longer nurture your growth, letting go of a lifestyle that no longer represents who you are becoming. But what most people fail to understand is that letting go is not about losing. Letting go is about making space. It is about creating the room necessary for something new to emerge. And that something new is not external. It is not another job, another relationship, another temporary fix. It is you, your true essence, finally given a chance to step into the light after being buried for far too long. One of the greatest traps on this journey is fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of not being enough. Fear of taking control of your own life. Carl Jung spoke of this fear as a manifestation of the unconscious, an invisible force within us that tries to shield us from change. But here lies a great paradox. What truly harms us is not change itself, but our resistance to it. Life never stops moving. It is in a constant state of flux, an ever-evolving current that does not wait for anyone. If you cling to what no longer has life, if you hold on to things, people, or beliefs that no longer serve you, you will inevitably begin to feel trapped, stuck, as if you are merely surviving instead of truly living. Perhaps you have felt this at some point. The sensation that on the surface, everything appears fine. Your routine is in order, your responsibilities are met. But deep inside, there's an undeniable emptiness, a silent void that whispers to you in moments of stillness, a feeling that something within you knows there is more, that something greater is waiting for you, that you are meant for something beyond the familiar, but you don't know how to get there. That feeling is not a sign that something is wrong with you. Quite the opposite. It is a sign that you are ready to evolve. It is your unconscious mind pushing you toward the next step, urging you to grow, to expand, to become more of who you truly are. But this is precisely where most people get stuck. Instead of listening to this inner calling, instead of trusting that pull towards something new, they cling to the old. They convince themselves that it's too late, that change is too difficult, that it's safer to remain where they are, even if that place feels like a slow suffocation of the soul. And so, the years pass. They accumulate a life that feels less and less like their own. Jung had a radically different perspective on time. For him, time was not a straight line, not something that simply moved forward without purpose. He saw it as an internal process of maturation, of integration, of awakening. True youth, he believed, is not about age. It is about the ability to renew oneself, to allow transformation to happen over and over again. And this has nothing to do with how many years you've lived, but with how willing you are to reinvent yourself, to let go of outdated versions of who you are and step into a new reality. If you are at a point in your life where you feel the need for change but don't know where to begin, there is something crucial you must understand. Change does not happen externally. It is not a new job. It is not a new relationship. It is not moving to another city. These are only superficial shifts. True change is an internal transformation. It is a process of deep self-inquiry, of asking yourself difficult questions, of looking at your own reflection without fear, of facing what you truly feel in the depths of your being. And the key to this entire process lies in the shadow. Jung taught that the shadow is not something evil. It is not something to be eliminated. It is a part of you that has been repressed, ignored, or denied for too long. And if you do not recognize it, if you do not integrate it, it will continue to rule your life from the darkness. It will manifest as repetitive patterns, as relationships that frustrate you, as emotions that seem to come out of nowhere. The shadow does not disappear simply because you ignore it. In fact, the more you avoid it, the stronger it becomes. The only way to free yourself from it is to face it. What is it that truly scares me about myself? What aspects of my personality have I tried to hide? What emotions have I not allowed myself to feel? This is where many people choose to run. Because facing the shadow means acknowledging that there are parts of you that you have refused to accept. It means recognizing that you have made mistakes, that you have made choices out of fear rather than conviction, that you have allowed the world to define who you are instead of discovering it for yourself. But what most people fail to realize is that in confronting the shadow, we also uncover our greatest source of power. Because within the shadow, there are not only fears and wounds. There is also your authenticity, your raw creativity, your true essence. Think about the moments when you have felt truly alive, those moments when you have spoken with passion, when you have acted without fear of judgment, when you have felt deeply connected to something greater than yourself. Those moments were not coincidences. They were glimpses of your real self, moments when you were unfiltered, unconditioned, unlimited. And what Jung tells us is that you don't have to wait for those moments to come by chance. You can live from that place all the time. But to do so, you must be willing to strip away everything that is not truly you. This is the true rebirth. It is not about starting from scratch, but about starting with truth, the truth of who you are, the truth of what you truly desire, the truth of what you can no longer hold on to in your life. And this truth, though it may seem terrifying at first, is the only thing that will truly give you the peace you have been searching for all along. People who have gone through this process describe it as an awakening, like finally opening their eyes after years of being asleep. It is as if, for the first time, they can see everything with absolute clarity. Every decision they make no longer comes from fear, from obligation, or from a need to please others, but from a place of deep authenticity. And when this shift happens, everything changes. Your relationships transform because you are no longer chasing external validation. You seek real, meaningful connections. The opportunities that come into your life shift because you are no longer operating from a mindset of scarcity, but from a deep sense of certainty about your own worth. Your energy changes because you are no longer wasting it on sustaining a false version of yourself, one that was created to fit into a mold that was never truly yours. But let's be clear, this process is not instantaneous. It is not something that happens overnight. It is a journey, and like all great journeys, it requires patience, courage, and unwavering commitment. Every step you take in the direction of your true self is a step towards a fuller, more meaningful existence. And if you ever feel like it is too late to change, remember this. Transformation is always available to those who have the courage to face it. It does not matter how many years you have spent living a life that does not represent you. The only thing that matters is whether, today, you choose to take that first step towards your truth. And when you do, something extraordinary will begin to unfold. You will not only feel lighter, freer, and more aligned with yourself, but you will also start to notice how everything in your life begins to synchronize in ways that once seemed impossible. This is not coincidence. It is what Carl Jung referred to as synchronicity, the universe's way of affirming that you are on the right path. It is life responding to your decision to be authentic. There is no predefined roadmap for this journey, no checklist of steps to follow. The only real guide is your willingness to look inward, to ask yourself the difficult questions, to release what no longer resonates with you. And in doing so, you will discover yourself, not a new version of you, but the version that has always been there, waiting to emerge. And here's the magic. When you start living from a place of authenticity, the things that once seemed impossible begin to happen effortlessly, not because the world has changed, but because you have. You have stopped forcing yourself to fit into places where you do not belong. You have let go of the desperate need for approval. You have started trusting your own voice. And when you do this, something incredible happens. You become a magnet for everything that is truly meant for you. The right people will enter your life. The right opportunities will appear. Doors that once seemed permanently closed will swing wide open. Not because you were suddenly lucky, but because you are finally aligned with who you were always meant to be. There is something crucial you must understand on this journey. Not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will be ready to accept your transformation. Some people will want you to remain the version of yourself they have always known, the version that is familiar, predictable, and comfortable for them. They may resist your evolution because it challenges their expectations, their perception of who you are, and perhaps even their own stagnant realities. And this is where many people hesitate. They feel an overwhelming fear of disappointing others, fear of rejection, fear of losing what they have built so far. But what life teaches us over and over again is that losing what is not authentic is not a loss at all. It is liberation. True growth requires shedding the layers of yourself that no longer align with who you are becoming. You cannot build a fulfilling, meaningful life if you continue to cling to what drains you, to what no longer serves your highest potential. This is one of the greatest challenges of personal rebirth. It is not just about discovering yourself, but about having the courage to stand firm in that truth, even when the world around you does not understand. And this does not mean fighting those who refuse to support you, nor does it mean desperately trying to convince others to accept your new self. Instead, it means living from a place of authenticity without apologies, without unnecessary justifications. Because when you do that, when you finally allow yourself to be who you truly are, you begin to attract the right people into your life. People who genuinely resonate with your energy. People with whom you do not have to pretend. People who accept and embrace you without conditions, without expectations, without hidden agendas. But here's the thing, this process does not happen overnight. As you change, you may experience moments of loneliness. You may realize that certain relationships you once considered essential begin to fade away. You may go through periods of uncertainty, where you feel as though you'll let go of the old, yet the new has not fully arrived. This is normal. It is part of the process. And the key to navigating this transition is patience. Patience to allow the transformation to unfold at its own pace. Patience to trust that, even if you cannot yet see the final destination, every step you take toward your authentic self is a step in the right direction. The journey of self-discovery is not about rushing towards a final version of yourself. It is about embracing the unfolding, trusting the unknown, and allowing the right things to fall into place naturally. Something fascinating happens when you start listening to your intuition. You begin to realize that it was always there, guiding you, whispering to you, sending you signals along the way. But for so long, you were too distracted, too busy trying to fit into external expectations to notice it. Carl Jung believed that intuition is the voice of the unconscious, the way our deepest self communicates, directing us toward what truly belongs to us. And the reason so many people feel lost is not because they lack a purpose, but because they have stopped listening to that inner voice. They have silenced their own knowing in favor of external validation. They have ignored the gentle nudges of their soul in order to meet the expectations imposed upon them by society, family, or even their own fears. But the truth is, that voice never disappears. It is always waiting for you to turn inward, to trust it once more. And when you finally do, when you choose to listen, to trust, and to follow its guidance, you'll find that the path has been illuminated all along. Reconnecting with intuition is not an instant process. It requires dedication, awareness, and continuous practice. In a world filled with external noise, distraction, and societal expectations, learning to listen to that quiet yet profound inner voice demands patience. It requires the ability to filter out the chaos of the outside world and differentiate between fear, an impulse rooted in past conditioning, and true inner guidance, which comes from a place of wisdom and deep knowing. More importantly, embracing intuition means being willing to act on it, even when logic offers no immediate explanation for why something feels right or wrong. This is where synchronicity comes into play, a concept Carl Jung explored extensively. He discovered that when you align yourself with your true path, the universe responds in ways that seem almost miraculous. Suddenly, the right people appear in your life at the precise moment you need them. Doors that once seemed firmly shut swing open effortlessly. Opportunities that once felt out of reach materialize, as if by magic. But make no mistake, synchronicity is not mere coincidence, nor is it some mystical force beyond comprehension. It is the external manifestation of an internal transformation. It is the universe reflecting back to you the alignment you have created within yourself. It serves as confirmation that you are walking the right path. Yet, to experience these moments of flow and alignment, you must first take the leap of faith. You must trust your inner truth, even when there is no immediate, tangible proof that everything will work out. You must release the need for total control, the need for guarantees, an illusion of absolute security. True security does not come from meticulously planning every step of your life. It comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you'll always have the ability to adapt, to learn, and to grow. Choosing to live authentically does not mean life will suddenly become free of challenges. There will still be moments of doubt. There will still be obstacles that test your commitment to yourself. However, the difference lies in how you approach these challenges. Instead of reacting from a place of fear, you begin to face them with confidence. Confidence that every difficulty is an opportunity to strengthen yourself. Confidence that every apparent loss is simply making space for something greater. Confidence that every experience, whether pleasant or difficult, carries a purpose, one that serves your highest evolution. One of the most profound lessons Jung taught us is that true transformation never comes from external sources. It is not something that someone else can give you. It is not something you can find outside of yourself. Real change is an awakening, a process of discovering what has always been within you. And this awakening is not bound by age, nor does it have a predetermined timeline. It can happen at 40, at 50, at 60, or at any point in life when you decide that you no longer wish to live according to a script that was never truly yours. What makes this process so powerful is that it does not merely shift your relationship with yourself. It fundamentally changes the way you experience the world. When you live in alignment with your truth, relationships are no longer spaces of dependency, but of genuine connection. Decisions are no longer made from a place of fear, but from a place of clarity and inner certainty. Life no longer feels like an endless series of obligations, but rather an authentic expression of who you are. When you begin to live from your truth, when you dare to let go of everything that no longer represents you, you start to experience a deep, unshakable peace, one that does not depend on anything external. No, This is not a fleeting moment of happiness, nor is it a superficial sense of tranquility. It is something far more profound. It is the deep and unwavering certainty that you are exactly where you are meant to be. It is the realization that you no longer need to prove anything to anyone, that you no longer have to seek outside yourself for something that has always been within you. This does not mean that life suddenly becomes perfect. Challenges will still arise. Moments of doubt will still creep in. But the difference now is that you stand on a solid foundation. You no longer react from fear, but from awareness. You no longer get lost in relationships or situations that drain you because you have learned to listen to your intuition. You have come to understand that life is not something that simply happens to you. It is something that you create moment by moment, with every thought you think, every decision you make, and every action you take from a place of authenticity. This is a true rebirth. It is not about changing your external circumstances. It is about changing the way you live. It is an internal transformation that shifts everything, not because the world around you has changed, but because you have changed. You have stepped out of autopilot and begun to live with intention. You have stopped settling for things that do not fulfill you and started choosing from a place of self-love. You have stopped following the script that others wrote for you and have begun to write your own story. And the most beautiful part? This story is just beginning. It does not matter how old you are. It does not matter how long you have lived in a way that did not align with your true essence. The truth is, you can always start again. You can always choose a different path, one that is more fulfilling, more authentic, and more aligned with who you truly are. The only thing you need is willingness. The willingness to see what you have been avoiding. The willingness to let go of what no longer resonates with your soul. And the willingness to trust that within you lies a wisdom far greater than you ever imagined. And when you make that decision, when you dare to live in full authenticity, something incredible happens. Everything begins to flow. The right people enter your life. The right opportunities present themselves. Doors that once seemed invisible suddenly appear and swing open. Not because they weren't there before, but because now you are able to see them. This is the moment to take control of your life. Do not wait for circumstances to change. Do not wait for someone else to give you permission. Do not wait until you feel completely ready. The path to authenticity is not something that happens overnight. It is a process, a journey, a transformation that unfolds step by step. But the most important thing is to begin. And that first step can be as simple as making a decision, a powerful, life-changing decision. The decision to live for yourself. The decision to trust yourself. The decision to release fear and embrace the truth of who you are. If this message resonates with you, if deep inside you feel that the time for change has arrived, then I want you to take action right now. Leave me a comment below and tell me, what part of this message touched your heart? What are you ready to let go of? What truth are you prepared to embrace? What transformation do you feel is waiting for you just beyond your comfort zone? Do not keep this message to yourself. Share it with someone who needs it. Share it with someone who is going through a transition, with someone who is also ready to discover their truth, with someone who is standing on the edge of change but needs that final push. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell, because this is just the beginning. In this space, we continue exploring, we continue questioning, we continue diving deep into the knowledge that helps us awaken, because together, we can create a community of individuals who choose to live with authenticity, who choose to transform their lives from the inside out, who choose to be reborn at any moment they decide. The world needs more people who dare to live from their true essence, more people who have the courage to shine, to be themselves, to break free from what no longer belongs to them. And if you are here, if you have listened to this message until the very end, it is because there is a part of you that already knows this is your moment. So do not ignore it. Take the first step. Trust yourself. And remember, life truly begins the moment you discover who you are. I will see you in the next video. Share this message with those who need it, because together we can bring this transformation to more people. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for choosing to be authentic. See you soon.